Adam, let's start with just some interesting stuff that has made it into the news, and it's a real thing. And you and I have been talking about this for years because you and I have been bettors, and we were always talking about, listen, the reason injury reports in the NFL exist in the first place, it has nothing to do with more than gambling and fantasy football. And at least the NFL was smart enough to realize that back in the day, that, like, hey, listen, between the fantasy players, between the sports bettors, this is why we're getting all this viewership. That's why all this stuff is skyrocketing. We need to make sure to keep these guys happy. And in order to do that, we need to let them know who's playing, or at least give them an idea who may or may not play throughout the course of a week. And then this past week, fantasy players, maybe this one right here, who had a Bijan Robinson, or a bettor who maybe had some sort of Bijan Robinson props and whatnot, found a guy that they knew pregame was not feeling all that well, was feeling under the weather. But they didn't let anybody know, and as you well know, because you and I watch this and cover this pretty extensively, was nowhere to be found, and everyone was wondering why.
Accurate information all around, Matt. Cannot argue with a word you just said, and there is a reason, first of all, if we go back in what you were saying, that the NFL plays on Sundays in the first place, because the sports books way back needed something for people to bet on Sundays, and that's how the NFL ultimately made its way to playing on Sundays. And so to say that is to say it's a gambling product. It's always been a gambling product, and everything that it does needs to be viewed through the lens of the NFL being largely intended for gambling. I know that sounds weird to those who love the John Facenda NFL Films purity of the game, but that's the truth. And when you look at what happened with Bijan Robinson, that goes against everything that we know when it comes to injury reporting and why it's set up the way that it is in the first place. Now, understand that the way the NFL does it now is that you get a report on Wednesday, you get a report on Thursday, you get a report on Friday, and then the injury designation comes out of whatever you have on Friday. So Bijan Robinson was beyond the point where it falls into that standard part of the NFL injury reporting protocol. However, you have something going on here with a team who knew very well that one of its star players was not going to be available, and they, I'm going to say, leaned into the loophole to be able to say, well, we didn't have to. Now, the NFL is going to be the one who ultimately determines, did we have to say anything? Mm-hmm. But the teams and the head coaches are always going to be happy to lean into not saying anything that they don't have to say. Yeah. And if you saw Arthur Smith's press conference today, he was kind of a jackass about it. He made it sound to everybody like, oh, of course we weren't doing anything. Oh, you can make something sensational about everything. And he asks a reporter his opinion about climate change. Look, just take it seriously, okay? Yeah. If you don't like it, that's fine. But you get paid millions on millions to be the head coach of an NFL team in a league that has not only a history with gambling, but now has leaned hard into gambling. And Bijan Robinson, whether it's fantasy or props, is a marquee player who is going to be on the tongues of a lot of folks who are watching your games on Sunday.
Rookie of the year markets, literally this is a trickle-down effect through all kinds of stuff with all this. And, here's the deal. So, 90 minutes before kickoff is the final injury designation for everybody out there. And so technically he was not inactive. He did see 7 snaps. So there is that. However, they knew well before that they were not going to be able to play him a full complement of snaps. And so, Adam, I think what we need out of this, and this is actually, I'm glad this happened, because I think this is going to somehow make some sort of change, right? Where even if it's after the 90-minute final designation, if something were to come up, look, they are in bed with all these networks for billions of dollars that they have partnerships with. You call the sideline reporter over. It's as simple as that, right? It's like, hey, listen, whatever, blah, blah. Even if it's 30 minutes before kickoff, Bijan's got a migraine, doesn't look like he's going to play very much, just like, whatever. This is very easy. It doesn't have to be by the head coach. It could be by a PR person, whatever it is, however the message is delivered. But somewhere along the way, there has to be a chain of events that happens when a star player, like you're saying, is going to play. I mean, literally, the guy's playing 85% of snaps and then goes down to playing 7 snaps in the entire game and is nowhere to be found on scoring situations early on in the game. Inside the 10-yard line, Cordero Patterson was getting carries and not Bijan Robinson, early on in that game. And so I don't know exactly what the right solution is here, but like I said, I'm kind of glad this happened because they're going to come to some sort of solution because this is just too important, again, for their primary product that they will never tell you is their primary product.
So the idea of what happened with Bijan Robinson from the perspective of the Atlanta Falcons is something that I think we need to consider, but then I think I can debunk the main myth around this pretty quickly, right? The idea that you don't want the opponent to know, right? You don't want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to know that Bijan Robinson isn't going to play. And because the rules don't explicitly say that you have to say something about it because he did play, then you chose not to say anything. And I think we all know the NFL well enough to know that it's not like Todd Bowles was going to be able to completely revamp his game plan 90 minutes before the game when he finds out that Bijan Robinson, oh my God, hey, hold on, guys. Look, can we push kickoff back 15 minutes? I need to redo our run fits because Bijan Robinson isn't playing today. It's kind of silly to think that there would be any advantage gained by Tampa Bay at that point, that they wouldn't have any opportunity to prepare for it. So Atlanta didn't really gain much of anything, nor did Tampa Bay lose much of anything if you say something about it and when you understand that it would be as easy as what you're discussing, right? It should be through an official channel. Let's be clear about that. It should be something the NFL releases officially. If this were a situation where every single general manager or assistant GM who has Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport on speed dial sends a text and it goes out, sources say, and we all know exactly what it is because they're information brokers, not reporters, we'll understand exactly what's happening if that's what it is. But this is part of the argument for the regulated market in the first place, to bring it back to what we talk about day to day. The regulated market is supposed to function in a way in which you feel like everything is happening on the up and up. And if the NFL is going to be in a situation where it is making millions upon millions of dollars from its relationships with a number of partners, 7 of them, in fact, then the NFL needs to be as transparent as humanly possible, and this failed that standard.
I am of the mindset where I think we can hold 2 thoughts in our head at the same time and both be true, which is you hear players and coaches say all the time, I don't give a damn about your fantasy team. I don't care about your parlay. I'm out here to win games. That can be true, and I do believe that, while also holding the same thought in my head of, but you should be cognizant of it because if fantasy goes away, if people don't want to play as much fantasy and people don't want to bet as much and all that, then your ratings go down and then the rights fees go down and then in turn your salaries go down and the popularity of the sport goes down and it's a trickle-down effect from there. And so I think both things can be true. Yes, do I believe that they don't give a damn about my bet and my fantasy team? I do believe that. Do I also believe that they should at least be cognizant of the fact of that is a major, major part and the reason that they're making the money they're making, if they are in the situation they're in, they should also be aware of that as well. And so, like you said, the NFL, they're never going to do it on their own. The NFL now is going to have to step in and put in some sort of protocol. And like I said, I'm actually kind of glad this happened because I think this is something, I don't want to jump the shark here. I don't want to speak in hyperbole. What I do want to say though, Adam, this is not way removed from inside information and someone having inside information and whatever, because there might be someone in this realm, in this world, that knew Bijan Robinson wasn't going to play but a handful of snaps in this game and all the things like that. And there probably is a handful of people who maybe that got disseminated to. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do not want to go there. I'm just saying it is a slippery slope, right? And that slope can get really, really, really slippery really fast.
Matt, where was the late steam on Sunday morning?
Yeah.
The late steam was all Tampa on Sunday morning, right? And there are folks who do this regularly who are professional bettors or semi-professional bettors who put out content who don't make this conspiracy theory material. They will say very clearly, if there's someone the level of a Bijan Robinson or a quarterback who's not going to play, someone in their world knows before it is reported, right? We saw it with Trevor Lawrence. We saw the steam on Thursday night. I mean, starting on the Sunday before, it was moving all over the place based on what we kind of knew about Trevor Lawrence and what we thought we knew about Trevor Lawrence, and then we ultimately knew about Trevor Lawrence. And these are the sorts of things that just erode at the public trust over the course of time. And for those who listen to this podcast, I know you've probably heard us talk about these things and thought it's Chicken Little over and over and over again. But the thing is, it doesn't happen with one specific incident that takes you over that point where you jump the shark. It happens over the course of time where eventually there's one straw that breaks the camel's back, and you're upset with yourself for not having dealt with the other little things along the road sooner.
And another kind of real world thing going on here, Michigan football being investigated as well.
So this popped into the news in the past week where the Michigan football team is, if you haven't been paying attention to this, under investigation for a sign stealing scandal in which a staffer for Michigan is reported to have gone to other Big Ten opponents, non-conference opponents, and done something against the rules, which is to live scout those games, right? It's apparently okay by the rules if you want to watch a TV broadcast and try to interpret signs from there. So in case you're someone who's been watching college football and you wonder why you see right behind the head coach or the offensive coordinator, you see those giant banners right before the snap that are popping up behind somebody, it's to make sure that no one on TV gets a look at the signs and so that they can't scout. And so the idea of not being able to live scout is to create a level playing field for everyone in the NCAA. So when it's not somebody with the budget of Michigan who can afford to send a staffer all over the place, then you have a situation where it's theoretically more even for everybody. So this morning, and we are recording this on Wednesday, a national radio host who I'm going to say the credibility is dubious here, so I'm not jumping to go on board, but said that he had heard from a source that there was consideration to taking Michigan football off the board in certain places because of questions about the integrity of its games. I don't necessarily believe that for what it is. And our Mike Mazzeo already contacted regulators in New Jersey, said there are no plans to do anything like that right now. So I think that might be a bit of an overreaction. However, we already know from the reporting that ESPN has done that U.S. Integrity, the firm that has been partnering with sportsbooks, with colleges, with conferences, is involved in the investigation here. They are at least taking a look at whether or not the fact that Michigan was potentially able to get signs in advance is something that could have affected how these games played out, how point spreads moved, whether anybody else knew about this. We have to view everything that happens right now when it comes to the potential questions of integrity, whether it's NFL, college football. It all has to be put through the lens of legalized gambling, because the money that is involved here and the access that is involved here, whether or not there's a real influence, it's all about perception, and it's all about whether or not these incidents will ultimately be used to crack down on gambling within the regulated market on sports that is, shall we say, conflated with reality and perception, right? Whether it's a matter of things that actually happened that are integrity concerns were dealt with, or things that were perceived to be integrity concerns were overreacted to.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you know, you could just eliminate this by just letting them use headsets in the helmets. And so just, hey, NCAA, you know, maybe just get with the times here. And their argument is that every school wouldn't be able to afford it and whatever else. Okay. 90% of the programs would be able to afford it. The 10% that can't, maybe you step in and you help them out or something, you know, whatever. But like, let's be for real. Let's quit all the archaic stuff and whatever, and like just get with the times.
My favorite part of this whole thing is that now what's come out in the investigation is that almost all of the other Big Ten schools have a record of this staffer buying tickets to their games. How dumb can you be? You know it's a rule, and you buy the ticket in your own name? Are you kidding?
Go scalp a ticket outside the stadium, man. What you doing? Go scalp a ticket outside the stadium. Cash transaction. Like, what's going on?
Yup.
Oh boy, in the digital age, it never ceases to amaze what people don't know can be recorded and tracked.